this is the first of 3 webinars that we are running, really just to help everybody to, one, get back on the front foot again. It's been so challenging for so many of us over the last few months, but hopefully now we're able to start taking a few small steps to move forward again, and to start embracing some of the tools that we're going to be referencing on today's webinar. So with that in mind, we'll just make a start, and just as a way of introduction, just my name is Lulus, and I'm joined by one of our coaching team today, Katie Tarostic. Katie's going to be my more than able assistant as we go through today's webinar. We're both scaling up coaches, both really helping mid-market companies, or for that matter, anybody who's ambitious on their growth journey to successfully grow their organization. So that's very much what today's session is all about. Katie, do you want to say hi?
Sure. Can I enable? I don't know. I don't think I can turn my video on though.
Maybe not right now, but just say hi, and where have you joined us from?
I'm in London. I just moved to London actually, and yeah, looking forward to the workshop series over the coming few weeks.
Good stuff. So yeah, as I say, Katie will be keeping an eye on the chats for me, and anyway, so you're all very welcome to join us on today's webinar, and also a big warm welcome to those who have recently joined this sort of UK Manufacturing Unite initiative. I know there's a lot of you on today's webinar, and it's great to see such a wonderful spirit of collaboration within that area. So we'll be taking a bit of time to actually have a look at some examples around that. But it's interesting. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it feels right now that we've had a massive punch in the face over the last 3 or 4 months. And those plans that we had, all those good intention plans that we put together back in the end of December 2019 and earlier this year, you know, kind of they're totally being challenged, and having probably to be totally ripped up and then start again. So this series that we're putting together right now is really designed to help you to reset, to really get a focus again on terms of the right strategy to help you move forward. But then next week, giving you the tools and the ability to really execute with the focus and discipline that you're going to need in order to move forward again. And then in 2 weeks' time, we're so focused right now on the importance of having the right mindset. It's unbelievably difficult, we acknowledge that, but having the right mindset to be able to prevail, to be able to do whatever it takes to keep moving forward, and giving you some structure and tools to do just that. So that's what we're about. And again, reason why I love being a scaling up coach is that the tools we have are simple, they're practical, and by that, they're easily actionable for you then to be able to embrace them and put into your business. And for us, the textbook is written by Vern Harnish. Vern's wrote Scaling Up, and before that, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And then we've got some very powerful growth tools. So what you're all able to do is go onto the website, just make a note of this, onto www.scalingup.com, and there you'll be able to go into the growth tools area and download the workbook that I just highlighted there, that growth tools workbook. So some of the tools I'm going to take you through today, you'll find referenced in there. So again, it's an easy area to access, and very, very practical. Now, what is clear, and we know this, is no matter where you are, what sort of business you are, growing a business is tough. It really is difficult. And obviously compound that through the challenge we're going through right now is even more of a challenge, a bit like, you know, the guy here pulling an anchor through treacle. It doesn't have to be that way. If you've got everybody aligned, if you've got a peak performing team, you've got a distinctive strategy, then you can actually feel like you're on this sailing boat with the wind in your sails, really motoring along. And that's where we're trying to get to. That's the kind of area that we want to focus in on, is to be that high performing team, high performing sailing boat, as it were. But it's going to be different. The future is going to be very different from what we've been used to in the past. The playbook we need to have is going to be very different to what we've had in the past as well. So it's very much about managing in the new world that I want to hosting. And I think right now, this concept that fast beats big, being agile, being able to take quick moves, being able to innovate quickly, to revisit your value proposition and pivot is where we're going to be focusing it. And so technology previous to COVID-19 was significant, but I think this is going to be more than ever. Technology will enable us to enter into new markets, to innovate faster. Couple that with the mindset and the right organizational structure is all going to be about helping you scale forward. Compound that with the ability to access and interrogate and understand the right data as well. So as we go through this series, one of the things that we're going to be looking at more in depth next week is the importance of processes, the importance of efficiency, the importance of improving productivity, absolutely, but also being able to make the right bets, being able to predict the way that the markets are going, looking at the trends that are taking place in your industry. And by doing that, having that sort of larger structure, but then being able to be like this smaller, faster, fleeter sailing boat, have the agility and the flexibility to move quickly from that. So what we're talking about is having maybe the muscle of a big company, but then the heart of a small company to really accelerate through that. So think of it as you will, moving from a lean startup to becoming this agile scale up. And that's what we're going to be focused on right now. How do you chasm the gap? How do you move through that? And the first book I'd like to reference today, many of you have heard of Jim Collins, maybe not so many of Morten Hansen, but the book Great by Choice actually followed his first massive great seller, Good to Great. But for me, Great by Choice is a wonderful book for mid-market companies, much more so than the large organizations. And as Jim talked about, we cannot predict the future, but we can create it. And I think that's something that I, again, just really want you to reflect on today about what can we do in order to really create the future in our respective industries or our category around that. And Jim answers a very pressing question. It's around, why do some companies thrive in uncertainty, even chaos, and others do not? Why do some companies really thrive in these challenging times, even chaos, and others do not? It's such a powerful question to ask right now. And what separates those that take great by choice from the others? And Jim talks about this notion. It's all about understanding the principles that distinguish great organizations from good organizations. And those principles we're going to be looking at in a bit more depth over the coming weeks. Certainly having 10x leadership. And right now, I think, as you've all probably felt, you've had to really ramp up your own leadership capabilities, probably taking you way outside your own comfort zone. And that's so important. Again, we'll look at that in a couple of weeks' time. But this notion of having and executing 20-mile marches, that discipline of consistently doing whatever it takes to bring about the execution of the plan. And we're going to look at this and firing bullets and cannonballs in much more depth in a week's time. But when Jim talks about 10x leadership, he really reflects on the fact that what differentiates a 10x leader from the rest, from the normal. And he reflects on the fact that they have huge purpose, they have long-term goals, they put in terms of severe performance standard and a fanatic discipline to adhere to them. And I think this is the sort of really what sets those leaders apart, is this fanatical discipline that they have that Jim talks about. Now, what I'd like to do is just to open up a quick poll and just open this up. And if you're able to just have a reflection right now. What is your biggest challenge that you're faced up to? Is it lack of focus? Is it cash and cash flow and access to cash? Is it strategy? Is it team? Just put in your thing, whatever it is, around people and those sort of areas. So just give a couple of minutes. It looks very even at the moment, very even. Maybe one or two just creeping ahead now. So yeah, if you haven't voted right now, just another couple of seconds, and we'll just grab those. Just excellent already. So we can end the poll there and share the results. And again, really fascinating that very sort of even split between that lack of focus. Maybe you find how do I get really focused, and that's something that we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks' time. Having the right mindset, having the right plan that helps you get focused. When we got just the next one up, strategy. 36% of you, and then 40% of you suggest it's getting your team in the right place right now. So thanks for that. So it's I'll just close that down. And one of the areas, and I think Bern Harnisch has talked about this recently, that those people who are likely to win in all of this are those that are able to garner the very best intelligence. And it's in wars right now, if it's or in the marketplace, whoever can get the best intelligence will normally win. What does that mean? It means probably spending more time on the phone, connecting up with your customers, more time with your colleagues, figuring out what's going on in your respective markets, finding out from the industry leaders what's going on, but almost having a sort of KPI as a leader. How much of my time am I measuring where I am absolutely in touch with people, where I'm in touch with the marketplace, I'm in touch with my customers, I'm in touch with prospects. And by doing that, garnering what's going on in your industry, what's happening in your marketplace, where there are opportunities to grow, to work with them is a great measurement to have. So when we think about scaling up, we really look at 4 decisions. And they are, first up, people, then we look at strategy, then we look at execution, and then cash. And you think about it this way, making sure that we've got team members who are happy and engaged, and that's not just team members, but all of our stakeholders. We've got a distinctive strategy that is going to drive revenue and growth. We've got the profit and time that comes about with a fanatical discipline to execute consistently, and then cash right now, as we all understand, is the oxygen of our business. So I just want to reflect on, for the rest of this session, some areas maybe right now we're thinking, actually, for a lot of us, scaling up maybe isn't the right phrase to have. It's difficult enough just staying where we are, let alone scaling up our organizations. And we heard a wonderful webinar from Keith Farazi a few weeks back, where Keith talked about, rather than going back to work, let's go forward to work with all the great new disciplines and habits we picked up through the crisis. So for this perspective, just going to talk about scaling forward. I'm going to look at 4 areas, 4 P's, 4 practical P's: people, pivot, process, and price. And as Jim Collins said, it isn't the answers that's the challenge. We've got all the answers. It's the question we do not always know. And again, when you've got people around you who can push you, cajole you to actually ask bigger questions, this is when you then find the breakthrough. So I've put it out there that right now, if we look at scaling forward, we think about people is, in this downtime, is who to pursue. Who to pursue. Now, it's no doubt through no fault of their own, there are going to be an unbelievable number of talented people, really talented people, A players, who are going to come onto the marketplace that, quite frankly, mid-market companies may never have had access to. So thinking about right now, how do I go about getting a virtual bench, or how do I go about looking at the key roles in my organization that I need to fill, and who are the people that I need to pursue. And one of the questions we ask when we come to this people piece is this: are all employees and stakeholders happy and engaged in your business right now? Are all employees and stakeholders happy and engaged in your business right now? Clearly, that's a big ask. You know, everyone's going through these hugely challenging times. But if you think about it in another way, and think about all your colleagues, when you've got some tough decisions to make about who you're going to keep, maybe who you've had to furlough, and maybe who you may have to let go, is this very, very pressing question. Would you enthusiastically rehire every one of your employees right now? And actually, would you do the same with your stakeholders? And for that, we use this functional accountability chart. And you find this in the growth tools. And when you go through the functional accountability chart, it helps you to identify how I got the right people on the bus, how I got the right people sitting in the right seats and doing the right things. And when you look at this document, have I got seats with multiple names in, which may well be the case if you're a small company, because actually, you know what, when you start up, you've got multiple roles that you're doing. Have you got people occupying too many seats? And by default, not necessarily being able to get laser-like focused in any area. And are there any seats right now which are empty? And now is a perfect time to look at it. What are the areas, maybe bring in a sales lead or bring in a finance lead that is so important. So getting the right people on the bus and doing the right things is absolutely key for all of you. Equally, having a very clear view about those people who maybe aren't serving you well right now and being able to categorize the people that you may need to let go in these tough times. And the other thing I'd just like to hone in on is what are the areas that you need to really ramp up and think about your training right now. And I'd like to, if I may, bring in Hugh Kimber right now. Great, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And I know that as sales lead with Exponia, and actually Exponia, one of the very first clients who joined the Scaling Up Masters program in London a couple of years ago, so we got to know each other then. But I've always been impressed about the level of focus that you put into growing your sales team and training them. Can you just take me through what, even right now, over the last 3 and 4 months, what have you been doing to keep your sales team sharp and really focused?
Yeah, so it's been tough because of, you know, all the working from home, and sales team or salespeople inherently, I was one for 20 years before moving to leadership position, and inherently we're easily distracted. So maintaining a level of focus and discipline is quite tough remotely. So I've been running since the sort of everything started to kick in and deals went a little bit sideways because of COVID. We've been running a boot camp every 6 weeks. Okay. And what we've done differently is we used to do sort of levels of sales training, but it was usually around updates on the company, new product releases, things the sales function should know. But we've chosen a discipline and we've decided to stick to it. Now, there's lots of different sales disciplines or processes. There's medics, a pretty famous one. There's spin selling, Miller Heiman, strategic account mapping. We did a bit of research and fell onto or decided on the Challenger sales rep. So I did a training session or a boot camp, if you like, about a year ago on the Challenger sales rep. But then there was a piece missing. We knew it was the right move, yeah. But there's a follow-on publication called the Challenger Customer. And the concept of the Challenger Customer is the idea that you're selling change. You're not selling a product, you're not selling a solution, you're selling the concept that a business needs to fundamentally change their mental model. So we've rolled out a series of boot camps. They're about 4 hours long with the right coffee breaks in between. It's hard to get sales guys to stare at a Zoom, keep it as interactive as possible, but we're maintaining a discipline. So we're educating them on the process and giving them tools to be successful and put it into plan. But then we have a scorecard and a measurement process with very high discipline from a leadership point of view, tracking the performance and how the sales guys are actually adopting this discipline. The main thing here is to make sure it's consistent, because every sales guy has their own style. They come from different companies that we've hired. They've got different training approaches. But in the current climate, what we were kind of doing before, it wasn't really going to work. So we've had to adapt, if you like. Yeah. And so far, so good. It's been pretty successful.
Brilliant. And I think, again, this mindset that right now, it's so important to keep the organization, certainly the sales team, really fit for purpose. So going through training and boot camps so that when we come out the other side, everyone is really good to go and you've got maybe a competitive advantage.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think the main thing is doing it regularly. So the 6 weeks thing, once a month was a bit too much, but 6 weeks, and then we reflect on, you know, what have we put into play and how's it worked, and we also get the guys to share stories with each other.
Yeah.
But it's the maintenance of that core message and driving it home. They have to hear it 10 times before they start doing it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, you.
No problem.
So I just wanted to reflect on, from my perspective, I think it's absolutely fundamental that we've got our sales team really well trained up, using this sort of unique time to revisit your whole training playbook, the sales playbook, as it were. And the other thing I wanted to reflect on is, and it goes back to that note I was talking about a few minutes ago, is the importance of intel and connecting up with people. And Keith Ferrazzi, in his book Never Lead Alone, really expounds the benefits of having just the right relationships with the right people. So one of the things I'd like you to do coming out of this session, please, is to get your little black notebook, and I'd like you to write down the name of 25 people. They could be potential clients, they could be existing clients, they might be good collaborators, they may be suppliers, they may be people in government, wherever it is, maybe good business partners. I'd like you to write names of those 25 people down and then commit over the next 90 days to reach out to them, start building a relationship. And better still, you know, as things start to open up a bit, either go and have breakfast or have lunch again. And I think one of the areas that has been really instrumental right now about sort of moving things forward, I think it's just importance of collaboration. And if I may, I'm just going to bring in Peter Harrison at stage. Katie, if you can unmute Peter Harrison for me, please. And because what Peter's done, Peter works with FJH Security in the security industry, highly fragmented, but has worked tirelessly to collaborate, sometimes with some of these competitors, to really bring about a solution to a need that was moving him into another market. Peter.
Where we sit in the security industry, very busy, fragmented, as Neil said. About 2,000 companies across the UK. And we saw about 75% of the manned security work dry up in March. All the licensed premises, all the events that had normally gone, a lot of the guarding, the shopping centres. What we also saw was the supermarkets. There was a lot of distress with the public at the supermarkets, and a lot of concerned public. It went from conflict management, when people didn't like the rationing, with toilet rolls or with the milk, right through to opportunistic thieves, and then the social distancing in the queues. So we collaborated. We reached out. First of all, we reached up the supply chain, and we spoke to some very big competitors, you know, approximately 20-30 times our size. We spoke to the supermarkets, and we put a solution together that involved not just us, but another 50 companies from across the UK, all sort of our size and smaller. So in terms of numbers, the three big companies we're working for are all sort of into the hundreds of £1 million revenue organisations. We did 6 million last year, and the companies we're working with did 1 or 2 million. And collectively, though, we've deployed 1,500 people to the supermarkets every single day. So chances are, if you're here now, if you shop at Waitrose or Morrison's, you've probably come past a guard or a queue marshal that's come through our supply chain.
And what was it like, Peter, when you had to sort of swallow your pride almost and say, right, you know what, we're going to reach out to our competitors? How was that?
At the time, we were happy to be surviving more than anything. And, you know, we don't have much competition. We have other people in the marketplace. And, you know, I think it would have been worse for them taking the call from us, but no one had any option. You know, all of a sudden, the only work available for the 400,000 licensed individuals in this country, that's how many people have an SIA license. The only work available was either NHS, a bit of public sector, sort of infrastructure stuff, and the supermarkets. And that was it. So normally we might be dealing with 20, 30 different sort of sandboxes, market segments. There was only these three. So it was a question: collaborate or die at the time. You know, this was pre-furlough when we set this up in mid-March.
Thank you so much. And I think, again, there's a message for all of us there about going forward. What can we do to, maybe collaborate more effectively across our industry? So I think that's very well. But for me, one of the things that I've been really inspired about, I think, is that those organizations that I've been working with that have got a massive dream, a huge purpose, that where they're heading, are the ones who are more likely to prevail, because they've got this, whatever it takes attitude, that this is not going to hold us back. We won't be sunk by this, because we've got this huge purpose, a big dream, a big, hairy, audacious goal, as it were. And when you've got that, when you've got a big dream, not just a pipe dream, but a big dream, what it tends to do is give you energy. And that's probably what we all need right now. It gives you that sense of purpose, but also the direction that you need to go in, as almost like a moral compass. And I think those guys who've had that have really prevailed. And equally, having discovered core values that just allow you to make and guide the decisions that are so important for you, in these really tough times. Mark McCall, unfortunately, can't join us to the session. Hopefully, he will join us just next week. He's the CEO of Aegis. And I think if there's one thing that they've really honed in on in having to make tough decisions in these tough times, is going back to their core values about, we care about people, we care about respect, doing things the right way, but also striving for excellence, having that, not just we care, but also making sure that they hold on to productivity. So I think, have a good look at your values. If you haven't got values right now, or you want some help in discovering your values, we'd love to be able to help you on that. But it's a really good chance just to revisit your values and what you stand for. And then as we scale forward, some of you may have looked at your markets that you're hunting and think, right, we're in a really challenging marketplace right now. But there may be an opportunity to pivot. And as Eric Rees teaches us in the Lean Startup, really a pivot is a change of strategy, but actually not necessarily a change in vision. And that sort of notion of being sort of the Lean Startup that Eric preached of a few years ago really is not, or is actually expanded really by sort of Wayne Gretzky, the great Canadian ice hockey player, who talks about skate to where the puck is going and not where it's been. And therefore, where is your market going? Where do you need to skate to in order to be ahead of the curve, in order to be seeing that? So what do we need to rebuild in an organization, as it were? And one tool that we use and have been using really effectively over the last 4 months is what we call the sweat tool. Now, many of you will have heard the SWOT tool, but we call this the sweat tool. And this is around about your strengths, your weaknesses, and whatever trends are taking place. And again, you'll find this within your growth workbook. But what we look at here is, what are your core strengths? What are your strengths? What are your core competencies that you've been doing over many, many years that are absolutely bedrock about the way that you go about doing your business? And on the other hand, what are some of the weaknesses, some of the blind spots that you've got? And you may be aware of them, and you may say, actually, right now, we know we're not good at marketing. And are we ever going to get great marketing? Maybe not. But what we can do is outsource marketing to someone else. We're never going to be great at it. So we can really focus in on our core competencies. So if you think about this, an organization like BIC, BIC, huge global organization right now, but they realized that their core competencies were not only being able to manufacture effectively plastic, metal consumables, but they had a core competence about fusing plastic and metal together as well, of manufacturing with plastic and metal. And it's an interesting one when you look at all the other sort of trends that are taking place in the market. And we think about trends as well through the sweat tool. What are the dynamic trends that we're seeing right now that we can take take accountability for. And if we think about manufacturing, there's going to be a whole area of maybe 3D printing, 4D printing, that they may be the future trends that you can benefit from. If you think about building, I think we've got a few constructors on today. Trends in building more efficiently, more sustainably. There's going to be undoubtedly coming out of this huge trends in the future of healthcare and keeping people safe. And I know one of our clients, Michael, and again, Katie, can you just bring Michael off mute for me, please? Michael actually,
hello.
Hi, Michael. Joined again. I think, were you on the first or second? I can't remember the second master's program, I think. But just take you through your story, because I think you've been on a number of these webinars as well, and you've been inspired by one of Vern's talks, I think specifically around BIC, and that then helped you with a pivot. Just tell us a bit about the story there, please.
Yes, well, we've been to 2 summits in the USA, and that's where we met with Neil. We've done, I think it was the second cohort of the master's program. But then, probably like most of us, I thought that this will be a temporary stop for the economy. It will all bounce back. But after a few days, I started thinking, well, actually, what if this lockdown continues for much longer? And I was very lucky to attend one of Vern's webinars, where he mentioned 2 things that actually really got me thinking. One was the example with BIC, where their core competence was not just making pens, but actually putting plastic and metal together, which actually shines a nice light on what your own competencies are. And the second thing was about, it was a simple sentence: if you haven't pivoted, you'll be out of business soon. And those 2 things really got me going. And for us, it was actually quite easy, because after having been on the course, the mastery course, for 1 year, we had clearly defined our core values, our BHAG, which is building a global conglomerate of companies famous for the service and reliability, and our core competency is manufacturing. So by looking at trends in the Far East, because they were ahead of the West in terms of the virus, we quickly worked out that we can pivot from making steel into making plastic. So we started supplying screens for offices, as shown, and that's been a very good choice, because sales is great. And as funny as it sounds, June was a record month for us ever since we started over 10 years ago. We're not stopping there. We're pivoting again, and by pivoting, I don't mean we stop doing one thing and start doing the other. We're just adding more things that we can easily do. It is Tough Bro. It is equipment for garden exercises. As we know, gyms won't open anytime soon, but also the trend for people is to actually exercise in their own confined spaces rather than share the space together with other gym goers. And we are not stopping here. These are, I'll call them small projects. I've been waiting for the last few years for a downturn so that we can benefit from mergers and acquisitions. And my team, which is a team made of 8 players, we had to get rid of a few during the course when we were pinpointing our core values. But now we've got a marvelous team, and we can literally be that agile small motorboat where we can just steer left and right and change direction as quickly as necessary.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I think it's about, as you rightly say, being able to change direction quickly. It doesn't necessarily need to mean you leave behind what was your core business. In this case, opening up new categories and new markets. And as we know, one trend is, as Michael rightly said, more and more people are needing to work out from home. Their gym is shut. And are these offcuts, Michael, or from your production, or how have you gone about creating the Tough Bro?
Yes, not all of it is from offcuts, because we predominantly do heavy steel, but we are literally, as we speak, the production floor is working on some extra weights, and those weights are literally scrap pieces. So this is our approach of thinking, how can we help not only the environment, but short cycle the whole loop of recycling materials. Yep. So instead of throwing it away for peanuts, we can actually upsell the same piece of steel for much more, because it will be used as a dead weight for people to lift.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. I think when we get to the questions, we may have some opportunities for you as well. So thank you so much for that, Michael. And I think, we just had Peter, just joining us around about that collaboration, and he's literally had to pivot from keeping nightclubs safe and bars safe to keeping supermarkets safe and maybe keeping shops safe. And again, it's just moving into new categories and being open to that, as well as some of the guys from PP, and I know quite a few on the call today are in the manufacturing sector, and I think it was amazing what you guys have been doing, either to create PPE sort of to keep us safe, or to help create ventilators, like PPE did as well. And also this sort of pivot that PPE done is, to bring in UK Manufacturing Unite, collaborating, great example of collaborating across the industry to actually see what we can do. That very, very plausible initiative around that. So we talked a bit about the sweat tool. I think the other thing I'd just like you to think about is this notion of the 770 rule, the 770 rule. So it's not always that you need to chase all of the market. In fact, it makes much more sense, just a bit like the guys of IKEA have done, is to chase maybe just the market, the profit pools, where all the profits are. So for example, IKEA, they've actually got maybe something like 7% share of the furniture market, but actually they have 70% profit share of flat pack furniture. They know precisely the niche they're in. So one of the tools we use, and I want you maybe to think about, is what are the different market segments that you could go into? And when you do the analysis on those market segments, where does the profitability lie? And what are the dynamics? Are those segments like to grow in the future, or they like to contract? And by doing the strategic analysis, you're then able to highlight what are the verticals, what are the, I think as PP Control talked about, zebras that you really want to go after, so that you can then become much more laser-like in terms of targeting that market share, gearing up your value proposition to that area of the market which is profitable, as opposed to chasing everything and realizing actually a lot of it is being a busy fool around that. So taking time, and this I think going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about looking at the intel, what are the needs of your customers now? What are the needs of your core customers in the future? And making sure you've got a value proposition that really works closely for them. And looking then at the tool that we use to bring all of this together, the one-page strategic plan. And this really allows all of your strategy to come together onto one page. Obviously, underneath it is a lot more detail, but pretty much all the clients we work with have the heart of where they're heading, the one-page strategic plan that distills down all the thinking from the future, the long-term, the values and the purpose, right through to the strategic thrusts. And then, as Katie's going to be talking more about next week, around execution. Katie, do you just want to give a quick heads up, if you're able to, about where you would use the one-page plan with your clients?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Do you mean at what time or what challenge?
Yeah, just in terms of when you've gone through the one-page plan with them, how do you then help them to really get to a place where they can go about executing the focus?
So usually I would use the one-page strategic plan to refocus, to get everybody aligned, have everybody literally on the same page. And then that can be also summarized in the vision summary. So that's a little bit more simplified version. And then through the meeting rhythms and through the Rockefeller habits, it's going to be executed. And yeah.
Good. So then that's what you're going to be talking about in more depth next week. You're having a tool that really allows you to make it easy for you to bring your thinking into one place. This vision summary that Katie just alluded to, that every single member of the organization can have, that really brings to light their own objectives for the next 90 days and their KPIs. So you have that measurement facet that comes through that. So that's around pivot. The third P I want to think about, but very briefly, because we're going to go into this in much more depth next week with Katie, is this whole area in terms of the process. But what I want you to think about is how easy is it to do business with you right now? And again, one of the tools we'll be reflecting on more next week is the process accountability chart. having you think about 5 or 6 key processes in your organization that you need to have running without drama, that you need to have that are pivotal to the organization's success, and then having somebody ultimately who is accountable for each of those areas. And there, I love this guy. This guy called Paul Akers. He has just such a great demeanor. He's just got so much energy when it comes to lean thinking. 2 Second Lean, I highly recommend you get that book. Certainly anyone who's in the manufacturing sector, to be able to think in a way about process improvement, lean thinking, but made fun. But going back to this notion of right now, how easy is it to do business with you? And one of the things that you could potentially do is put yourself into the shoes of your customers and ask them, how easy is it to do business with us right now? What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we keep doing? And they'll tell you. So if they get frustrated by your invoicing system, or frustrated about trying to get through the phone on you, or it's difficult to get through to, you know, on your internet or your website, then just have a look around that. And probably Jack Ma, who's just retired from Alibaba, has got one of the very simplest mission statements of any big company. And it's just this: to make it easy to do business anywhere. And unsurprisingly, it's very similar to Amazon. It's a kind of mission as well. You know, they've just got the one click and make it ridiculously easy to order online. So that's processes. And then the 4th P, just wanted to hone in on right now. In the third webinar series, we're going to go more into depth on cash, but is this notion of price. And whoever is going to be the quickest to recover will have some real key tools in their disposal. I think one of them that's often not looked at, certainly not looked at in much depth, is the importance of price. And it would be interesting in the chat box, how many of you have ever been on any sort of pricing strategy course, or ever gone into any sort of pricing learning? Because it's one of the things that we just don't look at. We look at right now, we need to save costs, and that's fine, and hone back on things. But it's very rare that we actually spend time looking at price. And the one tool that we use here is called the cash conversion cycle. And again, we're going to go into this in much more depth in a couple of weeks' time, because it's important that we're able to look at those different areas of our business and where we hemorrhaging cash. How can we actually speed up the sales conversion cycle, like Hugh was talking about earlier? How can we get the money that's owed to us, our debtors down, and get that? So again, having and using this cash conversion cycle is something that we will get into in a few weeks' time. But as Philip Kotler said in these 4 Ps, the importance of product, price, place, and promotion, and looking at price. And it's interesting, people are not necessarily logical, but they are psychological. And by that I mean, we are emotional when we make pricing decisions, and we do it in a way that plays to not necessarily always logic, but plays to their emotions. And there's a great Harvard Business Review article by Rafi Mohammed that what we'll probably do, Katie, is just get a link to this to the guys, that talks about the good, better, best approach to pricing. And again, right now, there's so many different ways that we can have pricing strategies that we can make it easy for people to be able to purchase from us. But having some in-depth views. Now, Herman Simon is probably, in his organization, are the world leaders when it comes to pricing consultants with his organization. And The Confessions of a Pricing Man is one book you may want to read, and equally get hold of this little tome here called Beat the Crisis. And in chapter 6, I think it's chapter 6, chapter 6 of Beat the Crisis, there's a whole chapter given over to how, in a time of challenging times, do you really get on top of pricing. So I really urge you to dig into that and to think with the team about different areas that you can improve your pricing proposition, refine that against your value proposition. Again, if you need any hands in helping come up with some pricing strategies, we'd love to have a conversation around that. So just in this short section, just wanted to go over those 4 practical P's that help you scale forward: people, pivot, process, and price. And with that in mind, Katie, have we got any questions that people have been putting in or anything in the chat box? Or now is a perfect time just to put in your question, and we'll see if we can do our level best to answer it.
No questions so far. Mark is asking what's the third P, but I think that question has been answered.
Yeah, that's process. I think there's a couple in the Q&A box. I don't know if you see that or not, but
Yeah.
So I think we've got one from Adrian Wayne. And Adrian, I think we caught up a couple of days ago. And can you suggest a way of how I might collaborate with a former client acquaintance who I might not see for 5 years? I think one of the areas, again, for all of us, and a bit like Peter spoke about, is just reaching out to people right now. It's now has been a great opportunity for many of us to talk to people maybe haven't spoken to for years. And maybe it's changing a bit, but certainly the last 2-3 months, people that we wouldn't have been able to connect with for fact because they're super busy, have been working at home and being able to take a phone call. So I think first up for all of us is going back to those 25 relationships, is starting to get to work and picking the phone up or dropping an email or whatever it is, and finding out ways that we can help the industry. We can actually come together, as Peter did with the security industry, to make a difference. And that's a great place to start around collaboration. Katie, you got any other ideas at all on collaboration?
I think it's always about coming from a place of how can I help the other person first instead of asking for help.
Yep.
That's usually, I mean, the rule I would say that makes it most efficient. And yeah, not necessarily bringing up the collaboration part in the first meeting or two, but connecting with people and just looking at where they are and what they may need, and then later on possibly asking for collaboration. Yeah,
very good, thank you. So I think there's a couple of other questions that are coming around around pricing and making sure that we've got a really good sort of area of focus around this pricing thing. It's probably best, as I said, to read the books, and then as I spoke about, getting this notion of good, better, and best, and thinking about your proposition. Some people, and you'll see a lot of SaaS companies do this. A lot of SaaS companies offer you the best proposition, and that might be all the bells and whistles for a certain month, monthly subscription. Then they've got their better proposition, and that's more often than not the one that they want you to go for. And then they've got a good proposal at the other end of it. And again, it's structuring your proposal, your proposition, to a place where you have given it some thought, and then you make it easy for people to, and your sales team to make that purchasing decision for you. Okay, any other questions, Katie?
No other questions.
Okay. One interesting, this may be a bit of collaboration here. I think one or two have been asking Michael a bit more details about Tough Pro. Michael, do you just want to come back on? It looks like we've got a few people who are in the fitness industry here. What is the way you can go about getting Tough Pro?
It's Tough Bro with a B.
Oh, Tough Bro.
But what is the way? Well, it's all online. There's already been a question from Peter for a discount code. Email me, michael@stilo.co.uk, and I'll send something out. Yeah.
Very good. Love that collaboration already. That people can see just that, that there's an opportunity to stay fit. It sounds like a great initiative that you've been able to pivot into, and so good luck on that.
Yeah, thank you. And it was quite easy for us because obviously steel is our sort of mainstream. So it's still steel, it's just slightly with less lighter and smaller gauge.
Yeah. Yeah. And where did the inspiration come from?
It's actually something I had in the garden when I was a teenager.
Right.
That I made it out of scaffold tubes. And then again, following the trends and seeing what's happening, and pivoting as and when required. And then we've got one of our welders operators. He is a very keen enthusiast of calisthenics, which is exercising his own body weight. So together with him, we've come up with this design, and the photos are actually him and his girlfriend, because she's also into it. So again, collaboration with employees. And then same thing, he's got a discount code where people, if they use his discount code, then he gets a commission for it. So it's working together.
Very good, very good. And Chris Orr, just maybe bring Chris Orr in, if I may, just give Chris the permission to talk. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah, I can. Hi, Neil.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, obviously we didn't have Mark join us today, but I see you joined the webinar as well, and you're from Aegis Engineering. If I may, Chris, just want to go back to that slide that I put up about the importance of having core values and that sort of core purpose. Why do you think that served you so well over the last couple of months?
Well, it's been a fundamental part of our growth story. Just so people know, we've been working with Neil he's been our business coach for the past 8 years, I think now, Neil. And during that time, we've gone from an engineering consultancy of 5 people to one of about 60 people. So it's completely changed, but changed the landscape of the company. But having spent a lot of time thinking about our core values and our vision right at the start of that whole process has served us well right through. And in particular in the last few months, when we've been, particularly I'd say in March and April, is when it most hit home to me. We were, dealing with some difficult ideas and difficult uncertainties, which everybody was. And we were debating what's the right thing to do. How do we respond to this situation? And as a leadership team, we kept on finding that you've only got to go back to look at what's the right thing to do. One of our values is actually do the right thing, and it just making us think, well, we've got 2 or 3 different ways we could go, but which one fits with our values best? And then the decision cleared itself up, and then you make that decision, and then you stick with it. You drive it through.
Yeah, very, very good. Okay. And did you also, Neil, can you just go once again the idea of the 25 key relationships?
Yeah, I just put that question on because I have literally opened up a blank page in my book, Neil, and written 1 to 25 down the side. So I'm going to move on to that after this is finished.
Yeah. So I think there's a number of things that you can all do here. And again, this is an opportunity for maybe getting in touch with people that you wouldn't have dreamt of being able to get in touch with beforehand. So it might be that on your list of those 25 people are potentially people that you'd love to bring into your organization. And I think that if you think about this as the analogy of the sports team right now, and having a virtual bench, you might not necessarily have an opening, but there might be somebody who's an amazing sales director who's suddenly become available, or there's a great finance person who's becoming available. Having those conversations with those people and having those relationships. Having relationships like Peter did with potential collaborators that you can work with. Start building relationships, maybe if, with investors, that's where you're heading. Start building relationships again with key customers. And really, what I want you to do is really push yourself out your comfort zone. So those people who think there's no way that such and such will pick the phone up to me, get them on the list and figure out a way, LinkedIn or figure out a way of connecting with them. And either right now it's probably more apt to have a Zoom call. But I was speaking to Vern last week, and he's finding actually, I think he said just this, when people are zigging, then zag, go and do the opposite thing. So right now, start maybe having a breakfast meeting with people again, having a face-to-face. and having that down as your KPI. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Neil. Yes, thank you very much for talking a bit more about that.
Yeah, no, thanks for that push. So, so this series of webinars, and it is us coming back to getting into not normal again, but sort of finding our way. So we'll get a bit more polished as we do more of these things. It's a bit of a journey of discovery. Hopefully, you've got some great value out of today, and you know, feel free to invite others along to it. So I think we've got maximum we can have is 100 on the webinar. So if there's anyone else that you know of that you think actually could get value from these areas, please, you know, again, join us next week. As I said, Katie's going to be leading next week and really going through sort of the focus about how do we get one thing, having a great strategy, but it can all be let down if we haven't got a powerful execution. So going through how to set it up and have great meetings and the right cadence of meeting rhythms, how to make sure that we've got the right priorities in the business, how do we make sure we're measuring the right things and setting up war rooms and all those sort of areas. And then in 2 weeks' time, we'll come back to making sure that we've got the right mindset around that. And then hopefully, as we get more of these happening, we'll do more of them so we can actually help more people on their journey. We think that's exactly the right place to be right now, be of assistance. And then in the future, if we can help you in a specific area, we can bring you maybe up to some of the other programs that we're bringing in that are from very affordable programs like Survive, Adapt and Thrive, which we're just about to launch, to some of our bigger programs. I'm more than happy if any of you just wants to have a further conversation with myself after about what those could look like, we could do that. And we've done the Q&A, so that's it. Just at the top of the hour, hopefully a good lunch and learn session, plenty of ideas to take back into your business and to make happen. Really look forward to catching up again next week. Thank you for your participation. And final thing, thank you, Katie, for your help in facilitating today. And we're recording it, so we'll put the recording onto YouTube as well. So have a great rest of the week and see you again next week.